Alright, y'all. I've played it. I got some thoughts. Let's talk about it. Mixtape just dropped on May 7th, and it's described on Steam as an inspiration from classic coming-of-age movies, nodding to the bittersweet feelings about growth, transformation, and moving on. The game has a pretty cool soundtrack, which features big names like Iggy Pop, which you would know that one if you watched the recent Superman movie, and Smashing Pumpkins. The studio refused to compromise on streamer mode with the game when people called them out on it because they didn't want to remove the songs. They said it changed too much the gameplay. The game features three friends who embark on one final adventure on their last night together in their last year of high school. They go through a mixtape of memories, hence the name of the game, which honestly sounds like a pretty damn solid pitch to me. However, IGN ranked it a 10, calling it a masterpiece, which somehow makes me a little hesitant to trust that.
And does so with a masterful sense of style.
I guess they must not have mentioned cheese too much throughout this game. Despite the high praise from critics and reviewers, some gamers are rolling their eyes saying there's no gameplay in this at all, basically calling it a big long movie with bits of movement in between. However, it's got one thing going for it. The studio, Beethoven and Dinosaur, have proven before that they can make a solid art game that people will enjoy. The team is described as small, and they dropped The Artful Escape in 2021. That game won Artistic Achievement, Audio Achievement, and Best Debut Game of the 2022 BAFTAs. It was also a nominee for Best Art Direction and Best Indie Game at the Game Awards in 2021 when it released. So they've proven they can do it once, but can they nail it again? Did they nail it again? Yeah. Yeah, I think they did it again. I hate to be that person who agrees with IGN for the first time in my life, but I think they might have been onto something. And the game is pretty short, it's only about 3 hours long, but I loved it. I enjoyed every second that I spent in this game. I enjoyed every second that I spent with these characters. I understand that a lot of people have complaints that there's not a whole lot of gameplay in it, and I get it. I do understand that point, but I do feel that this is more of an experience rather than a game. At least that's how it felt to me, and I know that's not for everybody. If you're a big Call of Duty bro guy, then and all you play is shooters, then this isn't for you, and you knew that. You know this isn't going to be your kind of game, and I feel like it's unfair to criticize it based on your feelings when all you play is shooters. And I get it. This game isn't for everybody, but I do feel that the hate on this one is a little forced to me, it seems. If you go out of your way to hate on this game, just go ahead and say it. Say you hate your friends. Say that you don't enjoy music, because that's what this game is. It is a love letter to finding yourself through song and art, and it is a love letter to falling in love with your friends, or at least tolerating your friends.
Woo! Back in business, baby!
Slater! Slater, you fucking hog! Slater!
He'll be back. I think. I don't think he's coming back.
And as far as the art style, I loved the art in this game. I enjoyed every second I spent in it. It didn't feel stale to me. I know a lot of people are getting really tired of the kind of arcane style art with everything being put out lately, but if it doesn't feel like a copy-pasted, like it's been copy-pasted straight out of Unreal Engine, then it wins some points from me at least. I love the art style of this game. I never got tired of it from its 1 to 3 hour runtime, which is not a very long game, but I enjoyed every bit of the art. It didn't bother me a bit. I stayed entranced with every level. I thought it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed the art, the music, although I can't play most of it in this video because of copyright, obviously. I thought it was very well placed. It was very well curated, which is kind of the main character's whole thing. So I would hope it's well curated, but I felt that it was very strongly put in the right moments. As far as the pacing goes with the game, I felt like the pacing was very strong. It never had any slow moments to me. Again, it was only about 3 hours long, so I would hope they would have the pacing down. I did have a few moments where it kind of lulled, but it wasn't like a bad lull. It felt very intentional. It felt like the game was reminding you to stop and pay attention to these characters and get to know them. It felt very intentional in its slower moments while also mixing in Mixtape those memories, which is the entire point of the game. As far as the story, I thoroughly enjoyed the story. It really is a classic coming-of-age story. More nostalgia, less with the 90s. Obviously, I didn't grow up in the 90s, but just the feeling that you get in high school right before you're forced to grow up, you're forced to go different ways with your friends. It really encapsulates that feeling right before you're forced to become the person you're eventually going to be. And to me, it really resonated, and I just enjoyed the story overall. Again, it's not for everybody. If you don't like coming of age, if you're not the type of person who can sit down and watch a rom-com, then this is not for you. And that's fine. That's fine. That's totally understandable. But this was this was for me, and I enjoyed taking it slow. I enjoyed looking at the art, and I enjoyed the bonding of friends and getting to know them throughout the game. I thought it was extremely well done. It was also another level which I thought was really cool that they added. The producers are called Beethoven and Dinosaur, and on one level, the main character is wearing a Beethoven shirt, which I thought was dope, and I noticed it, and I was like, cool, okay, a little nod. And then the next level immediately focused heavily around dinosaurs, so like you know that that's on purpose, and I thought it was a cute little nod to just their team and who they are and the effort that they put into this game. I thought it was a really neat push towards their brand. I thought it was really artistic, and I thought it was a really cool way to nod towards yourself on that. Also, like the gameplay, though people have complaints, there's not a whole lot in it. I enjoyed the movement. I enjoyed the way that they worked the gameplay into the game. It did feel very cinematic, which is expected. There's a part that really reminds me of La La Land, if you've seen that, where they're kind of floating through the air because they're like so encapsulated with each other. And this game had a moment where you're kind of floating through the air, literally, and it just kind of forces you to remember that like you can find the fantastical in the mundane. You can be sitting there with your friends and feel like you're floating, and so the game takes that as a metaphor, and it quite literally makes the character float. And I thought it was just a really artistic way to show the feeling of being a young adult before you become, you know, a full-fledged adult out in society and have to go to college and you get separated with your friends. I thought it did a really good job of just focusing on being you before you have to grow up to be a different version of yourself. I didn't notice any bugs or anything throughout the game. I paid pretty close attention to it. Again, it's only 3 hours, so I would hope that they can nail the presentation on a 3-hour game with no bugs. But I thought they did a really, really good job. As far as performance, I didn't see any dips. Again, it may have been hard to notice any because the game kind of is in a weird frame rate with the characters, so maybe that's how they would have hidden it. But I didn't notice anything odd. I thoroughly enjoyed the gameplay, the frames. I had no issues with any of it. Yeah, I know this game has a lot of discourse right now. The people who hate it really, really hate it, and I do understand that it's not for everybody, but I can confidently say that this one was for me. You know, you may not like this game, and that's okay, but don't go out of your way to ruin it for others. You know, if you enjoy a game, play it. If you don't enjoy a game, don't play it. It's not that hard. But as always, I'm going to try to keep you up to date with the latest news and games, try to give you my honest thoughts and opinions, and always come back and I'll keep you updated.